Look, I know what you're thinking. Wood knocks are just trees settling, branches falling, maybe a woodpecker with ambition. I thought the same thing for the first 3 years I worked Olympic National Park. That was before the Henderson incident, before I learned that some sounds in the forest aren't made by anything that should exist. My name is Sarah Whitehorse, and I'm a backcountry ranger in Olympic National Park, Washington. My grandmother was Quinault, and she used to tell me stories about the Tsemekwes, the wild men of the deep woods. I dismissed them as folklore, the kind of tales elders tell to keep kids from wandering too far from camp. I was wrong. It was October 2023, late in the season. Most tourists had cleared out, leaving just the hardcore hikers and the ones who didn't know better. The Henderson family, Mark, Jennifer, and their 10-year-old daughter Chloe, had registered for a 3-day backpacking trip into the Quinault Rainforest, one of the most remote sections of the park. Their planned route would take them along the Enchanted Valley Trail, roughly 47.8934, 123.5821 deep into old-growth territory. They were supposed to check in via satellite messenger every evening. When we didn't hear from them on day 2, dispatch sent me and my partner Marcus to investigate. The trailhead was empty except for their Subaru, a fine layer of moss already growing on the windshield from the constant drizzle. Marcus checked the trail register while I examined their vehicle. Everything looked normal, properly locked, no signs of disturbance. But something felt wrong. The forest was too quiet. Sarah. Marcus's voice had an edge I didn't like. Last entry is from 4 days ago. They should have signed in here. We geared up fast. Packs, radios, first aid, my grandfather's hunting knife that I'm not technically supposed to carry. The trail wound through cathedral groves of Sitka spruce and western hemlock, trees so massive and ancient they made you feel like an insect. The canopy blocked most of the light, leaving us in perpetual twilight even though it was barely noon. We'd hiked maybe 3 miles when I heard it for the first time. A sharp, deliberate knock echoed through the forest, wood on wood, hollow and resonant. Woodpecker, Marcus suggested, but his hand had moved to his radio. Wrong rhythm, I said. Too slow, too intentional. The knock came again, then another, from a different direction. Then a third, deeper into the forest to our left. They were spaced perfectly, like someone or something was communicating. My grandmother's words came back to me. When you hear the knocking, little one, you walk the other way. They're talking about you. We found the Hendersons' first campsite an hour later. The tent was still standing, but the setup was wrong. The rainfly hung loose, water pooling inside. Their food bags sat on the ground, partially torn open. No bear would leave that much food behind. Marcus keyed his radio. Base, this is Ranger 7-2. We've located the Henderson campsite. Signs of disturbance. No sign of the family. Requesting backup. Static crackled. Copy that, 7-2. Nearest unit is 4 hours out. Weather's moving in. Advise you hold position until the knocking started again. Closer this time. 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. It circled us, moving through the forest with impossible speed. Sarah? Marcus pointed at a Douglas fir about 20 yards away. The bark was shredded, long vertical gouges running from about 7 feet up to well over 10 feet. What kind of bear does that? That's not a bear, I whispered. I pulled out my flashlight, even though it was still daylight. The beam caught something on the ground near the tree, a footprint pressed deep into the moss. 18 inches long, maybe 7 inches wide. 5 toes, humanoid arrangement, but the proportions were wrong. The depth suggested something that weighed 400 pounds or more, and it was fresh. Water was still seeping into the impression. The knocking intensified. Now it came from all around us, ahead, behind, both sides, a conversation in a language of percussion. And underneath it, barely audible, I heard something else, a low, guttural vocalization that made my spine ice over. We need to move, I said, now. The Hendersons are either dead or we can't help them. Move. We ran, not the controlled retreat they teach you in training, but flat-out terror running. The knocking followed us, staying just out of sight in the trees. Branches snapped in our wake, not from us, but from something paralleling our path, something big. Then Marcus went down. He'd caught his boot on a root and went sprawling. I spun back, reaching for him, and That's when I saw it. Between two ancient hemlocks, maybe 40 feet away, stood something that shouldn't exist. It was massive, 8 feet tall at least, covered in dark reddish-brown hair. The shoulders were impossibly broad, the arms too long, hanging past where the knees would be on a human. But it was the face that paralyzed me. Almost human, but not quite. The brow was too heavy, the jaw too wide. And the eyes, those amber eyes, held intelligence. Not animal cunning, but actual thought. It watched us, studied us. Then it opened its mouth and produced a sound I'll never forget. A deep, resonant knock that I felt in my chest cavity. An answer came from behind us, then another from the left. We weren't dealing with one creature. We were surrounded. The old protocols, I gasped, pulling Marcus to his feet. My grandmother's teachings flooded back. We acknowledge you, Chayan, I called out in Quinault, the words rusty but remembered. We mean no harm. We're leaving your territory. The creature tilted its head. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then it took a single step backward, melting into the forest like smoke. The knocking stopped. We didn't run this time. We walked backward, keeping our eyes on the trees, maintaining that slow, non-threatening retreat my grandmother had described. It took us 2 hours to reach the trailhead, the longest 2 hours of my life. Search and rescue found the Hendersons 3 days later, 12 miles from their last known position. They were alive but hypothermic, huddled in a shallow cave. None of them would talk about what happened. Mark Henderson's hair had gone completely white. Chloe hadn't spoken a word since. The official report listed it as a wildlife encounter with probable bear. I didn't correct it, but I did add a note to the internal ranger database, the one the public never sees. Quinault Rainforest, October 2023. Active woodknock communications observed. Recommend heightened caution in grid 47N123W. Tsemekwes protocols in effect. My grandmother called me a week later. I hadn't told her anything, but somehow she knew. The knocking baby girl, she asked. Yes, grandmother. And you remembered the old words? Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Good. They're getting bolder. More hikers every year, pushing deeper into their territory. The old boundaries don't hold like they used to. What are they, grandmother? They're what was here before us and what will be hereafter. The forest memory, given form. They don't hate us, but they don't forgive intrusion either. I still work Olympic National Park. I still patrol the backcountry. But now when I hear wood knocks echoing through the old-growth forest, I stop. I listen. I count the pattern. And if it's the 3-2-3 sequence, the conversation rhythm my grandmother taught me to fear, I mark that area off limits and I turn around. Because some warnings aren't meant to be ignored. Some sounds in the forest aren't invitations to investigate. They're telling you something simple, something ancient, something true. You're not alone here. You never were. And you're not welcome. Last month, a young couple insisted on hiking the Enchanted Valley Trail despite my warnings. They came back after one night, pale and shaking. They'd heard the knocking, they said, all night long, circling their tent, communicating. I filed the report, added another note to the database, and I remembered what my grandmother told me when I first took this job. The forest keeps its secrets, Sarah, and sometimes the kindest thing it can do is let you walk away. If you hear wood knocks in Olympic National Park, deliberate, rhythmic, conversational, leave immediately. Don't investigate. Don't try to rationalize it. Just go, because they're not knocking to make noise. They're knocking to count you.